In the readings of this Sunday, my dear friends, after those of last Sunday where we had to do with the call, we have here the pattern of Christian life to which we are called. It concerns each of us here, whatever our state of life. There is a bottom line, and it's that of peace. Seek peace and pursue it. It's taken up actually in the prologue of the Holy Rule, that of St. Benedict, which formed the monastic life in the West. And one sometimes sees it written large in monasteries of that order. Pax. Now, peace is something which is operative on two levels. We can't have peace unless we're at peace. I'll give you an example. In the 1950s in France, there was a young married man whose name was Jacques Fesch. He had presumably one or two interior problems, and he thought that if he got hold of a yacht and sailed away, he would find joy and escape his problems. The only thing was, he didn't have the wherewithal to buy this yacht, and so he thought, I will get it by unjust means, at least it will happen. And he started to burgle, and in the process he found he was being caught up with. He had a firearm, and under duress he used it, and in the process a policeman was killed. Eventually he was caught, imprisoned, and in 1957 guillotined. Thank God, having had a powerful grace in prison, as can be seen from his writings therein. He may one day be beatified. He's been looked at because of the huge grace he had in prison. But I mention his story because it's a typical example of what we're at. And many right now are spending large quantities of their annual income to do just that, a great holiday. And they think that they will find joy, peace and freedom a long way from home. But they forget that they're carrying one big bit with them, their soul, unchanged, the constant in the equation. Right now, observe what goes on holidays. They start quite well, the first buzz of getting away, and around about the second or third day something goes wrong, and somebody in the equation, usually with a fairly short fuse, will mess up the holiday for all concerned. The problem went with them. It's the same back home in the family. It's the same actually in the aquarium of the monastic community. The fish that one bumps into 24/7. My friends, I want to look into this because the Gospel talks about relationships, essentially. Relationships which concern us all. You know what happens, specifically in a monastic community, but it also happens in a prayer group, a parish, or even a Christian family. Our friend is in the midst. And he's looking around. And he can see, there's a weak link. Let's zoom in into that. And he does. What is the weak link? A bad temper. And he'll push the button at the right time. Now that's kind of dangerous in an aquarium of enclosed souls, it's also dangerous in a family. It's dangerous, my friends, in a Christian family which is into prayer, because this gentleman can't bear it. And the better it is, the more he's at work looking for a weak link. Be one step ahead. The other model of looking into how to protect ourselves against that kind of scenario is actually fairly difficult to attain, because it means the collaboration of all concerned. Now, from experience I can tell you that there's a big difference between a way things are handled in a male community and the way that it might be handled in a female one. Typically it would be something like this. Women are more complex than men. They can observe a certain etiquette. They can actually perform well. But inside, they can be at work. And it can go inward and create bitterness, which accidentally comes out when they're off guard. It can go on for years and years. Typically, a male community is something like this. There's something annoying one of the confreres, and so... But 5 minutes later, it's over. And they move on, and they don't stay with it. I've told you before, but I'll tell you again, to put things in context, how things were handled in our community. There were joys in creating all the time great beauty with the angels for heaven, which attracted people by the hundred. On a Sunday morning, about 500 in church, coming from long distances to hear what was in that church in the Middle Ages. Beauty and unchanged harmony, serenity and ancientness heard again. And it was a joy to be with the brethren, creating this which was bigger than ourselves, receiving from antiquity what had been composed by our brethren way back. And it worked! But the devil hated it. And so he would try, and sometimes actually succeed. But we were able to get over it, usually, by the fact that males are a little bit less festering than females. And therefore, we could laugh at ourselves afterwards. And little things helped an awful lot. E.g., we were in the statue position one day before Compline. If you heard it before, switch off. And there we were, waiting for the signal to go out for the Divine Office, Compline. And we all heard this. And so the grand cantors were somewhat supernaturally cheesed off by this competition. So what happened? We heard this. As if nothing has happened. Males handle things in their own way. Women fester. What is your situation at home, my friends? Do you fester, or can you let go? I want to make a jump to two slightly related issues with regard to what I started off with. The fact that right now the whole world is in movement looking for joy. Now, a lot of money is being spent to find that joy. In the process, one or two things are being put on a back burner. If you're going a long way from home, or even calculating where to go, remember that the first commandment is what it is. And that implies also the keeping of the Lord's day. And therefore you have to look, am I sure that for the sake of peace and joy, I am not going to jettison the peace and joy of my conscience by not giving the Lord his rights on his day? Because a lot of Catholics manage not to find the Sunday Mass over the holidays. Because the holidays are more important. They're not. Put this before the Lord before you book. Can I find the Holy Sacrifice? Because if I can't, things are out of order. Something else has put Jesus in the second place. And there's no joy in the heart of those who normally would go to church and don't find him on the Sunday, which he's asked for himself. Remember what Our Lady indicated at La Salette? Two big things. My son reserved one day for himself, but men will not give it. The other, the workers cannot work without taking my son's name in vain. And the other I want to zoom into for a second is this. What goes on in these countries where people spend a fortune to go. They might find a certain joy in having a few extra rays of sun, but they might find also the new world of demons is soliciting them and coming into their hearts to roost. Staying in the imagination, impurity, the demons around on the beaches of Europe. It's all stuff which we don't need in our interior world. I finish with this. Listen. There was a noble lady, this is historically true, who was exceedingly pious. And she asked God to make known to her what displeased His Divine Majesty most in persons of her sex. The Lord vouchsafed in a miraculous manner to hear her. He opened her eyes to the eternal abyss. There she saw a woman a prey to cruel torments, and in her recognized, wait for it, one of her friends, a short time before deceased. This sight caused her as much astonishment as grief. The person whom she saw damned did not seem to her to have lived badly. Then that unhappy soul said to her, "It is true that I practiced religion, but I was a slave of vanity. Ruled by the passion to please, I was not afraid to adopt indecent fashions to attract attention, and I kindled the fire of impurity in more than one heart. If Christian women knew how much immodesty in dress displeases God." Another young woman found herself on the wrong side of eternity. She had a regular life, but her passion to attract attention by the charm of her beauty was the moving cause of her whole conduct. Having fallen sick, notice this, she died having received all the sacraments. While her confessor was praying for her soul, she appeared to him, saying that she was damned, and that the cause of her damnation was vanity. I sought only to please the eyes of men, This passion caused me to commit a multitude of sins. It prevented me from receiving the sacraments well. Notice, receiving the sacraments well. And it has led me to everlasting torments. I conclude where I started. Relationship. The quality of what we live where we are. Friends, whether they're monastic friends or even the friends of marriage itself, are a great blessing on the road. A friend is a treasure. Hang on to it. Also, you little people who have your parents, don't take them for granted. There will be a time when they're there no more, and we will look back and say, I'm sorry, I forgot to say thank you.
Patre Filio que pro